I was driving my 7-year-old grandson home from school when I called my daughter and asked, "What time should I come over tomorrow for Christmas?" My grandson sat quietly in the back seat holding the handmade card he made for me. My daughter answered, but after a long silence, she handed the phone to my son-in-law. He said, "We already celebrated Christmas yesterday." Then he added, "Honestly, it's better without you anyway." I simply said, "All right." But before I hung up, I asked my daughter one question she never expected, and my grandson's words from the back seat changed everything. "Welcome to Revenge, Dad, and thank you for being here. Before we go further, I want to ask, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. I love knowing who is on the other side of this story. Please note, this story contains fictional elements created for entertainment and reflection. Any resemblance to actual names or places is coincidental, but everything it has to say is worth hearing. I have been picking Noah up from school for 7 months now, ever since Emily went back to freelancing and the after-school program started charging extra for late pickups. Every weekday at 3 o'clock, I pull my truck into the pickup line at PS 118 on Elmhurst Avenue and wait. The line moves slowly. The teachers stand on the sidewalk in their winter coats, clipboard in hand, calling names like they are reading from a passenger manifest. I do not mind the wait. After Margaret died 4 years ago, I learned that quiet is not the same as empty. Sometimes quiet is the only thing that makes sense. It was December 23rd, a Tuesday cold enough that the bare trees along the sidewalk looked like they had given up trying. A thin skin of old snow still clung to the curb, gray and stubborn. I had the heat running and the radio off. I was thinking about nothing in particular, which is what you do when the grief has settled into something you carry, rather than something that knocks you down. Noah came through the double doors at 314 backpack, bouncing against his shoulders, his red scarf half unwound and dragging behind him like a tail. He was holding something in both hands, a piece of folded construction paper, bright red, the edges crooked the way things are when a 7-year-old cuts them. He spotted my truck and his whole face changed. That is the thing about kids that age. They have not learned yet how to hold back a smile. He climbed into the back seat and I reached around to help him with the buckle, the way I always do. "What have you got there, buddy?" He held up the red paper carefully with both hands, like it was a document requiring proper handling. "I made it at school. It's for you." He paused. "I think." "You think?" "I wasn't sure if I should give it to you yet." He set it carefully in his lap and smoothed the edges with his palm. "Ms. Delgado said we should give our cards to someone we love, so I made it for you. But then I thought maybe I should wait." "Wait for what?" He looked out the window instead of answering me, and I let it go. Kids have their own timing. I have learned not to rush it. I pulled out of the pickup line and turned left onto Junction Boulevard. The light at the next corner was red, and while I sat there, I reached for my phone and connected it to the Bluetooth. I had been meaning to call Emily all afternoon to sort out the timing for Christmas Eve. Her mother-in-law's side of the family had a tradition of opening one gift on the evening of the 24th, and I wanted to know whether I should come early or after dinner. I found Emily's name and pressed call. It rang 4 times. Then she picked up. "Hey." Her voice was flat in a way I did not immediately recognize. "Hey, sweetheart. I was just calling about tomorrow. What time do you want me to come over? I can bring the rolls you like from the bakery on Woodhaven if I leave early enough." There was a pause that lasted about 2 seconds too long. Then a different voice came on the line. Jason's voice, smooth the way he always was, like a man who had practiced being calm. "Actually, Richard, you don't need to come over tomorrow." My hand tightened on the steering wheel. "I'm sorry. We already did Christmas yesterday, the whole thing. Dinner presents the kids. It was great." He said it the way you announce a meeting has been rescheduled. Perfectly pleasant, perfectly unbothered. "So you don't need to make the trip." The light turned green. I did not move until the car behind me tapped its horn. I pulled through the intersection, slowly, my mind running the sentence back. We already did Christmas yesterday. I kept waiting for the part where he said he was joking. That part did not come. Emily came back on. I could hear it in her breathing, before she said a single word, that particular rhythm people have when they are trying to sound normal and failing. "Dad, it just worked out better this way. Everyone's schedules, you know how it is. It wasn't a big deal." My jaw tightened until I could feel it in my back teeth. I looked at the road ahead of me. A woman was walking a dog. A delivery truck was double parked. Everything was completely ordinary, except for the fact that my daughter had just told me that Christmas, the holiday I had spent the last 3 weeks preparing for wrapping gifts for buying ingredients for, had already happened. Without me. without a phone call, without a single word. And then Jason got back on. He let the word hang there for a half second, just long enough to make it feel deliberate. It's better without you anyway. The air went out of the truck. I heard Emily make a small sound, not a protest, just a sharp intake of breath, the kind you make when someone says something you were not expecting, even if you were standing right next to them when they said it. My chest felt like someone had reached in and grabbed something that belonged to me. I took one breath, then another. "All right," I said. One word. Because it was the only word I had that would not break something I could not put back together in the middle of Elmhurst Avenue with my grandson in the back seat. But before I hung up, I asked Emily one question, just one. "Did you tell everyone I chose not to come, or did you tell them the truth?" The line went so quiet I could hear the television in the background at their house, a news anchor, traffic on the Long Island Expressway. Emily did not answer. I ended the call. For a moment I just drove. My hands were steady on the wheel, but my knuckles had gone white and there was a pressure behind my eyes that I had not felt since the morning of Margaret's funeral. I breathed through it the way she had always told me to. In through the nose, out slow. Then a small voice came from the back seat. "Grandpa?" I looked in the rearview mirror. Noah was watching me. His red construction paper card was in his lap. His face was serious in that way children's faces get, when they understand something is wrong, but do not have the words for what it is. "Did Dad just say you're not allowed to come anymore?" The pressure behind my eyes sharpened into something that felt very much like it wanted to become tears. I did not let it. "It's grown-up stuff, buddy. Nothing for you to worry about." He looked down at the card in his lap. Then he reached into the front pocket of his backpack and took out his tablet, the small green one I had bought him for his birthday, the one he used for reading games and video calls with his cousins. He held it out toward the front seat. "Grandpa, I need to show you something." His voice was careful, serious. "I told Mom about it this morning. She said to delete it. I didn't." I glanced at the tablet, then back at the road. "What is it?" "I was playing a game last night, and I put it down on the table and forgot it was there." He kept his eyes on the tablet, not on me. "And then I heard them talking. I didn't mean to record it, but it did. And I listened to a little bit of it, and I thought..." He stopped. His bottom lip pushed forward slightly the way it did when he was working something out. "I thought you should hear it, Grandpa, because it was about you." I reached back and took the tablet from him gently. "I'll listen to it tonight," I said. "When you're asleep." He nodded, and some of the tension went out of his small shoulders. "Okay," he said. "Okay, Grandpa." He picked up his red construction paper card and held it against his chest with both arms like something worth protecting. I have been reading contracts my entire adult life. Building permits, subcontractor agreements, material invoices line, waivers, insurance certificates. I know what a number looks like when it does not belong. 35 years in construction teaches you that. You learn to read the fine print, not because you enjoy it, but because the one time you don't is the one time it costs you everything. I do not know why I had stopped applying that lesson to my own family. Noah ate 2 bowls of macaroni and cheese at the kitchen table, while I sat across from him and pretended to read the newspaper. He talked about a kid named Brandon at school who had gotten a remote control helicopter for an early Christmas present and crashed it into the gymnasium ceiling on the first try. He thought this was the funniest thing that had happened in the history of PS 118. His face was bright and open and completely unbothered by the weight of the afternoon, the way children's faces are when the adults around them have done their jobs properly and kept the storm outside. By 7:30, he was asleep on my couch, one arm thrown over his eyes, his sneakers still on. I pulled a blanket over him and stood there for a moment, listening to him breathe, even and slow, in and out. The sound of someone who had not yet learned to be afraid of what the next phone call might bring. I went to the kitchen and poured myself a cup of coffee I did not intend to drink. Then I opened the drawer beside the refrigerator where I kept the folder. Emily had given it to me 4 months ago. A blue cardboard folder letter, size with a yellow sticky note on the front in her handwriting, "Dad, just the paperwork we talked about." Sign where marked, "Love you." I had signed where she marked. I had not read what I was signing with any real attention because it was Emily, and Emily was my daughter, and my daughter would not hand me something I needed to be afraid of. I set the folder on the kitchen table and sat down. I opened it. The first few pages were what I expected. The original loan application, property information for the house in Woodside. Emily's income listed. Jason's income listed, though the number beside his name was lower than I remembered him mentioning. My name on the co-signer line. My signature at the bottom dated 8 weeks ago, in my own handwriting. I turned to the next section. The loan summary page had a number at the top in bold print. I read it once and thought I had misread it. I read it again. $178,000. I put my finger on the number and held it there as if touching it might make it change. Emily had told me 90,000. She had said it clearly sitting at this same kitchen table back in August with Noah playing on the floor between us. 90,000, she had said, for the roof and a little bit of credit card debt we've been carrying. It's not a big deal, Dad. It's just a refinance. 90,000. The number under my finger said $178,000. My stomach dropped the way it does when you step off a curb you did not see coming. I kept reading, page after page, my eyes moving slower, now catching on things I had glossed over the first time. There was a line near the bottom of the loan summary that I had to read 3 times before I understood what I was looking at. Cash out disbursement to borrower, $52,400. I said it out loud quietly because sometimes your brain needs to hear a thing spoken in order to believe it. What the hell? I flipped back to the beginning. I went through it again this time, the way I should have gone through it the first time, slowly, with a pencil in my hand, marking anything I did not immediately understand. There was a note on page 7, a small addendum dated 6 weeks after my original signature that referenced a revised loan amount. Another addendum dated 3 weeks after that. A third one with no explanation at all, just a new figure and a new date and a box, where someone had initialed with Emily's initials. 3 amendments in 60 days, each one moving the number further from what she had told me. My hand was not steady when I reached for my coffee cup. I set it back down without drinking. I picked up my phone and called Emily. It rang 5 times and went to voicemail. Her voice on the recording was cheerful, the voice she used for people she did not know well. "Hi, you've reached Emily. Leave me a message and I'll get back to you." I did not leave a message. I called Jason. He picked up on the second ring, which surprised me. His voice was the same as it had been on the phone that afternoon. Smooth, unhurried, the voice of a man who had decided in advance how the conversation was going to go. "Dad?" Not a greeting. A placement. Like moving a piece on a board. "Jason, I'm looking at the loan paperwork Emily asked me to sign. The amount on here is not what she told me." A pause. Short enough to be casual, long enough to be calculated. "Dad?" He said it again, softer this time, with a little exhale attached to it. The exhale of a man explaining something to someone he has decided is not worth explaining things to. "Stop going through things you don't understand. Emily and I have it handled. You don't need to worry about any of this." My jaw tightened so hard I felt it in my temples. "I signed this document," I said. "My name is on it. I have every right." The line went dead. He had hung up, not slammed, just ended the call clean and quiet, the way you close a door on a conversation you have decided is finished. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time after that. The refrigerator hummed. Down the hall, Noah made a small sound in his sleep, and then went quiet again. Outside, a car went by on the street, its headlights sweeping briefly across the kitchen wall. I looked at the blue folder spread open in front of me. $90,000. That was what she had said. That was what I had agreed to. What was in front of me was not $90,000. What was in front of me was $178,000 amended 3 times without a single phone call to the man whose name was on the co-signer line, the man who had never read the fine print because it was his daughter. I thought about Margaret then. I always thought about Margaret when I did not know what to do. She had a way of cutting through the noise that I had never been able to replicate on my own. She would have looked at that folder and looked at me and said something short and precise that would have made the next step obvious. She was good at that. At finding the frame around a problem so you could see its actual shape. She was not here. So I had to find the shape myself. I looked at the tablet sitting on the far end of the table where I had set it when we came in. Noah's green tablet, still and dark. I had told him I would listen to it tonight. But I needed to understand the paperwork first. I needed to know the size of what I was standing in before I added anything else to it. I picked up a pen and a fresh piece of paper from the drawer and started writing down every number in that folder in order with the date of each amendment beside it, column by column. The way I had been taught to read a job site, start at the foundation and work your way up. By 9 o'clock, I had 3 pages of notes and a very clear picture of something I did not want to be looking at. The tablet could wait 1 more hour. I did not sleep that night. Not really. I lay in bed with the ceiling above me and the numbers from the folder running through my head like a ticker tape that would not stop. 178,000, 52,400, 3 amendments in 60 days. I kept trying to find an explanation that made sense and did not require me to believe something I did not want to believe about my daughter. I could not find one. By 5:30 in the morning, I gave up and got out of bed. Noah was still asleep on the couch, burrowed so deep into the blanket that only the top of his head was visible. I made coffee, drank half of it, standing at the kitchen window, and watched the sky over Queens turn from black to the particular shade of gray that December mornings specialize in. Cold light. Flat and honest and unforgiving. I called the Chase branch on Jamaica Avenue at 8:59 1 minute before they opened. The woman who answered told me a loan officer would be available starting at 9:15. I left Noah a note on the kitchen table. Gone to run an errand, back soon. There's cereal in the cabinet and orange juice in the fridge. Do not answer the door, and drove the 6 blocks to the bank. The lobby was decorated for Christmas. A wreath on the door, tinsel along the teller windows. A small artificial tree on the reception desk, with blinking lights that were slightly out of sync with each other, which I found more irritating than festive. A security guard near the entrance nodded at me, the way security guards nod at men my age, politely without particular interest. The loan officer's name was Margaret Osei. She came out to the waiting area to get me herself, which I appreciated. She was a woman in her mid-50s, Nigerian-American by the look of her, with close-cropped hair and reading glasses pushed up on her forehead, and the particular stillness of someone who has spent decades delivering news that people did not want to hear. She shook my hand with a firm, dry grip and led me back to her office without unnecessary pleasantries, which I appreciated even more. Mr. Hayes. She sat down across from me and opened a folder on her desk, my folder, or a copy of it. You said on the phone you had questions about the Caldwell refinance application. I have the paperwork at home, I said. I went through it last night. The numbers are not what my daughter told me they would be. Margaret Osei looked at me for a moment with an expression I could not entirely read. Then she turned to her computer and typed something. Her face reflected in the screen was completely neutral. Mr. Hayes, before we go further, I want to make sure you understand the full picture of what has been submitted in your name. My hands pressed flat against my thighs under the desk. I was not aware of that until last night. Who requested the amendments? She looked at the screen. Your daughter, sir. The words landed in the room like something dropped from a height. I had known it somewhere in the part of the brain that processes things before the rest of you catches up. I had known it when I saw the 3 addendums, but hearing it said out loud in a quiet office with Christmas tinsel on the window and a woman who had no reason to soften it for me, that was different. I see, I said. My voice came out steadier than I felt. Margaret Osei folded her hands on the desk. She was choosing her words carefully. I could tell the careful choosing of someone who understood exactly where the line was between providing information and creating liability. Mr. Hayes, I want to make sure you understand the full picture of what you're being asked to sign. She turned the monitor slightly so I could see it. The current loan amount is $178,000. Of that, approximately $52,400 is designated as cash out, meaning that amount would be dispersed directly to the borrower at closing separate from the refinancing of the existing mortgage and debt consolidation. Emily told me $90,000, I said, for the roof and some credit card debt. Margaret Osei nodded slowly, the nod of someone confirming, rather than agreeing. There is also something else I need to bring to your attention. She typed again, and a different page appeared on the screen. She pointed to a line near the bottom. Your IRA account, the individual retirement account ending in the 4 digits listed here, has been included in this application as collateral. The air in the room changed. My IRA, the account I had opened 31 years ago with the first real money I had ever saved. The account Margaret, not this woman, had helped me set up at a kitchen table, in a different house, in a different life. $180,000, give or take, built over 3.5 decades of work. I had never touched it. Not when the business was slow, not when the truck needed a new engine, not when Margaret got sick and the medical bills started coming. I had never touched it because it was the wall between me and the kind of old age I was afraid of. My chest tightened until I had to remind myself to breathe. "I never agreed to that," I said. My voice had an edge to it now that I could not entirely control. "I never signed anything authorizing that account to be used as collateral, not for this loan or any other." "I understand," Margaret Osei said. Her voice was careful and even. "Under federal regulations, an IRA account cannot be pledged as collateral for a personal loan without the explicit written consent of the account holder. A separate authorization document would have been required." She paused. "We do not have that document in the file." The blood moved through my head in a way I could feel. "What does that mean for the loan?" I asked. "It means the application as currently structured has a significant compliance issue that would need to be resolved before closing." She looked at me directly. "It also means, Mr. Hayes, that as the co-signer, you have rights here that I want to make sure you understand clearly." She explained it plainly the way good professionals explain things without condescension and without unnecessary drama. Under New York real property law, a co-signer retains the right to decline to execute closing documents at any point before the loan is disbursed. The process requires the co-signer's signature at the closing table. Without that signature, the loan cannot close, regardless of how far along the approval process has gone. "If you do not appear on December 26th, she said, or if you appear and decline to sign the loan, does not fund." "And the amendments," I said. "The 3 changes to the loan amount? Was I notified of those?" She checked the file. "There is no record of written notification to you as co-signer prior to each amendment." I sat back in my chair. The Christmas tree on the reception desk outside her office blinked its slightly out of sync lights through the glass partition. Blink, pause, blink, pause. Like something trying and failing to keep a steady rhythm. I thanked Margaret Osei for her time. I shook her hand. I walked back through the lobby with the tinsel and the wreath and the security guard who nodded at me again on the way out. In the parking lot, I sat in my truck without starting it. 31 years, $180,000, 3 amendments, no notification, no written consent. I was still sitting there when my phone buzzed with a text from a number I did not recognize. "Mr. Hayes, my name is Tyler Caldwell. I think you need to see something before Friday. I'm Jason's son." I called the number back before I had even started the truck. It rang twice. Then a young man's voice came on, cautious like someone who had rehearsed picking up, but had not fully decided yet whether he wanted to go through with it. "Mr. Hayes. This is Richard Hayes. Who am I speaking with?" Tyler Caldwell." A pause. "Jason is my father. We've never met. I know this is out of nowhere, and I'm sorry for that, but I didn't know who else to call." He was 26 years old, he told me. He lived in Los Angeles, worked as a graphic designer, and had not had a real conversation with Jason in nearly 4 years. He had flown in from Los Angeles, where he lived and worked, to spend Thanksgiving with Jason in Woodside, a visit he described as short and mostly uncomfortable, and had made the mistake of leaving his jacket in Jason's home office when he went to use the bathroom. "I went back to get it," Tyler said, and his laptop was open on the desk. "I wasn't snooping, I just saw it." "What did you see?" I heard him exhale. Then the sound of something being opened a file, of folder pages turning on the other end of the line. "I'm going to send you a photo right now. Look at it before I say anything else." My phone buzzed. I opened the image. It was a screenshot of an email. The sender was a company called Palmetto Bay Residential, based in Naples, Florida. The subject line read, "Unit 4, B reservation, confirmation, deposit required." The body of the email confirmed a reservation deposit of $52,000, due no later than January 15th. I looked at the number on the loan summary, still sitting open in my folder on the passenger seat. Cash out disbursement to borrower $52,400. My throat tightened so fast it was almost physical, like a fist closing around my windpipe from the inside. "A condo," I said. The word came out flat and cold, the way words come out when your body has understood something before your mind has caught up. "Yes, sir." "In Florida." "Naples. It's on the Gulf side." Tyler's voice was careful, measured the voice of someone who had thought about this conversation many times before making the call. "Mr. Hayes, I want you to know I went back and forth about calling you for weeks. Jason is still my father. I kept telling myself there had to be an explanation. But then this morning, I heard Emily on the phone with Noah." He stopped. "She told him you called last night and said you didn't want to be around the family anymore, that you chose not to come." The steering wheel felt cold under my hands. I never made that call, I said. I know that. That's why I'm calling you. His voice tightened slightly at the edges, the first real emotion that had broken through the careful surface. Emily knew about the lone Mr. Hayes, all of it. I heard them at Thanksgiving talking in the kitchen after dinner when they thought I had already gone upstairs. She wasn't being pushed into anything. She was planning. The words hit me somewhere deep in the chest. Not a sharp pain, a slow one, the kind that spreads before you can stop it, finding every low place and settling there. My daughter. Planning. The words sat in my mouth like something I could not swallow and could not put down. I breathed through it the way Margaret had always told me to. In through the nose. Out slow. Let it move through rather than fighting to hold it back. Tyler. I said, keeping my voice level through an effort I felt in my back teeth. Has Jason done something like this before? A long pause. Longer than I expected. The kind of pause that tells you the person on the other end is not deciding whether to answer, but deciding how much of the answer to give. Yes, sir. His voice dropped. My mother, her name is Linda Caldwell. She lost her house because of him. Everything she had built gone. I helped her pack. It took 2 days. He stopped, a breath. You already know the shape of what happened to her. I won't make you sit through it again. I closed my eyes. Linda Caldwell had trusted her son. I had trusted my daughter. Different people, different relationships, same method, same result. There is a particular kind of pain that comes not from surprise, but from recognition, when you see the shape of something clearly for the first time and understand all at once that it was always that shape. You simply had not been looking at it straight on. He finds someone who loves him, Tyler said quietly, and he uses that love like a tool. He figures out exactly how much they trust him, and then he borrows against it just a little more, each time, moving the line so slowly that by the time you realize where you are already too far in to see the beginning clearly. My hand pressed hard against my chest without me deciding to do it, as if I could hold something in place that was already starting to shift. Tyler, I said, thank you for telling me this. I should have called sooner. I'm sorry I didn't. You called when you were ready. That's what matters. After I hung up, I sat in that parking lot for a long time. The December sky above Queens had gone the color of old pewter, flat and heavy, and without particular interest in the things happening beneath it. Somewhere across the lot, a car alarm went off and then stopped. A woman pushed a stroller past the far end of the row without looking up. An ordinary Tuesday morning going about its business, completely indifferent to the fact that a man was sitting in a blue pickup truck, watching his understanding of the last 3 years rearrange itself from the ground up. I thought about Linda Caldwell packing up a house. I thought about Emily sitting at my kitchen table in August, her hands wrapped around a coffee mug, her voice easy and familiar and certain. 90,000, Dad. It's just a refinance. You don't need to worry about the details. I thought about the tablet still sitting on my kitchen table at home. I had told Noah I would listen to it tonight. I had not listened yet. After everything Margaret Osei had told me at the bank, and everything Tyler had just told me in a parking lot on a cold December morning, I understood that the recording on that tablet was not a footnote. It was the foundation. I needed to hear it. I started the truck and drove home. Before I tell you what was on that tablet, what Noah recorded, without meaning to, what changed everything, I need to know if you are still with me. If you are listening to this on Revenge Dad, drop the word grandpa in the comments right now. Just that one word. It tells me you are here, and it means more than you know. A quick note. This story contains fictional elements added for depth and storytelling. Some details may not reflect any specific situation. If that is not the kind of content you are looking for, it is completely okay to step away now. Noah had eaten an entire sleeve of crackers and fallen back asleep by the time I got home. He was curled on his side on the couch, now facing the wall, one sock half off his foot. I stood in the doorway of the living room for a moment and looked at him. 7 years old, completely at peace with the world. I envied him, that in a way I had not expected to envy a child. I went to the kitchen and picked up the tablet from the table where I had left it. It was lighter than it looked, green plastic scuffed at one corner where he had dropped it. A small crack ran across the bottom edge of the screen that I had been meaning to ask Emily about getting fixed. The screen was dark. I pressed the button on the side and it lit up, showing a wallpaper photo of Noah and me at Coney Island from last summer, both of us squinting into the sun, ice cream in hand, grinning like we had not a single problem between us. I found the voice memo app. There was one recording dated December 22nd, time-stamped at 8:47 in the evening. The file was 6 minutes and 9 seconds long. I sat down at the kitchen table and pressed play. For the first few seconds, there was nothing but background noise. The television in the next room, the sound of dishes' footsteps on hardwood. Then Jason's voice came through closer than I expected, as if he had been standing right beside wherever Noah had left the tablet. Friday is the last piece. Once he signs, everything moves. Emily's voice a little further away. And if he asks about the numbers, he won't. Jason said it the way a man talks about a flight he has already booked. The decision made the outcome settled, the other party irrelevant. The man spent 35 years pouring concrete. You really think he knows the difference between a co-signer and a guarantor? A short pause and then quieter almost to himself. He never reads anything. He just signs because you're his daughter. That's all you are to him. A reason to say yes. I set the tablet down on the table. My hands were shaking not violently, just a fine tremor that started in my fingers and worked its way up to my wrists. I pressed my palms flat against the table and held them there until it stopped. Then I picked the tablet back up. Emily's voice, "What about the other account, the one Marcus set up? Jason, after Thursday, transfer everything there. Not the joint one, the other one. Marcus handles the rest from his end." "Emily, what if Dad finds out that account exists?" Jason laughed a short, easy sound, the laugh of a man who had already decided the answer was not worth worrying about. "He won't, and even if he does, what's he gonna do? He loves you too much to do anything." I wrote the name Marcus on the back of an envelope that was sitting on the table. One word, capital M. I did not know who Marcus was, but I intended to find out. The recording continued. Emily's voice changed softer, turned slightly away from wherever the tablet was sitting, like she was looking at something across the room. Mom would have never let this happen. The kitchen went very quiet around me. Then Jason's voice came back, and it was different from everything before it. Flat, almost bored, the voice of a man closing a door. "Well, Mom's not here anymore, is she?" The pain that moved through my chest then was not the sharp kind. It was the slow kind. The kind that starts somewhere behind the sternum and spreads outward like water, finding the low places in a floor. Margaret. He had said it about Margaret, my wife, Noah's grandmother, the woman who had sat in a hospital bed in the last week of her life and held Emily's hand and said things I had not been there to hear. I sat very still and let it move through me, because there was nothing else to do. The recording kept going. Jason's voice back to business. Marcus confirmed the deposit window closes January 15th. We need that cash out by then. No delays. Then Emily again, barely above a whisper. Sometimes I think she knew. Before she died, she looked at me and said, "Don't let them take what your father built." I didn't understand what she meant then. Jason did not respond to that. Not a word. He simply moved on. "Call him tomorrow. Tell him Christmas was moved. Don't let him come to the house before Friday. If he sees anything on the table—" "I know," Emily said. "I know." One final pause. Then Jason's voice low, and certain the voice of a man who believed completely in his own plan. "After this, we're done with Queens, Florida, fresh start. Nobody knows us there. Nobody knows what it took to get there." The recording ended. I sat at the kitchen table with the tablet in my hands and my wife's name echoing somewhere in my chest, and I did not move for a long time. Footsteps in the hallway, small ones, uneven with sleep. Noah appeared in the kitchen doorway in his socks, one of them still half off his hair, flattened on one side. He looked at me with the particular focus children have when they wake up, and immediately sensed that something in the room has changed. "Grandpa." His voice was thick with sleep. "Who is Marcus?" I looked at my grandson standing in the doorway on Christmas Eve, with his hair sideways and his sock falling off, and my chest ached with something that had no clean name. "I don't know yet, buddy," I said, "but I'm going to find out." He padded over to the table and climbed into the chair across from me, pulling his feet up under him, the way he always did. "Can I sleep in your room tonight?" "Of course you can." He nodded satisfied and rubbed his eye with the back of his hand. I waited until he had gone down the hall before I picked up my phone. I sent Peggy the audio file with a single message. "Call me when you wake up. I need you to hear something." Then I found the number David Harmon had left on Peggy's recommendation 2 weeks ago and left him a voicemail. I looked at the oven clock. 9:47. Christmas Eve. I looked at the photo on the tablet wallpaper. Noah and me at Coney Island, squinting into the sun. She had told Emily exactly what to protect, and Emily had chosen to forget. Or maybe she had remembered every single word and done it anyway. I did not yet know which one was worse. Peggy called me back at 10:19. I know the exact time, because I was sitting at the kitchen table staring at the oven clock when the phone rang, watching the numbers change the way you do when sleep is not coming and your mind has nowhere useful to go. 10:18, 10:19. Then my phone lit up with my sister's name, and I picked it up before the first ring finished. I listened to it twice, she said, without hello. That was Peggy, 57 years old, former paralegal, 20 years of working for a litigation firm in Los Angeles before she retired to Pasadena, and she had never once in her life opened a conversation with small talk when there was actual business to discuss. Play it for me one more time while we're on the phone. I want to hear the part about the account again. I set the phone on the table and played the recording on speaker. We listened together without speaking her in her kitchen in Pasadena, me and mine in Queens 3,000 miles apart, and connected by 6 minutes and 9 seconds of audio that my 7-year-old grandson had accidentally captured on a green plastic tablet. When it finished, Peggy exhaled through her nose, a long, controlled breath. The kind she used to use in depositions, she had told me once, when a witness said something that made her want to put her head through a wall. The account he mentions, she said, the one this Marcus set up, that's a separate disbursement channel, Richard. They were planning to move the cash out the moment the loan closed, not into a joint account, into something with no paper trail connecting it to you. Can they do that? People try. It doesn't always end well for them. Her voice was clipped and precise, the voice she used when she was thinking fast. The IRA issue alone is enough to invalidate the application. You cannot pledge a retirement account as collateral for a personal loan without a separate written authorization from the account holder. It's a federal compliance violation. The bank should have caught it before the application progressed this far. Margaret Osei told me the same thing this morning. Good, she's doing her job. A pause. Richard, I need to tell you something, and I need you to let me finish before you say anything. My hand tightened around the phone. Go ahead. Peggy took one breath. Then she said it cleanly, the way she always delivered difficult things, without softening it into something easier to hear, because she had learned a long time ago that softer did not mean kinder. 18 months ago, Jason came to me. He drove down to Pasadena on a Saturday. He brought paperwork. He said he had a business opportunity and needed a co-signer for a loan, someone with a clean credit profile and verifiable income. Her voice did not waver, but I heard something underneath it that I had never heard from Peggy before, something that sounded like guilt. I read the application. The numbers were unusual. The collateral structure was inconsistent with what he was describing as the purpose of the loan. I told him no and showed him out. The kitchen was very quiet around me. Peggy, I know. Her voice cracked at the edge just slightly, then held. I should have called you the minute his car left my driveway. I told myself it wasn't my place, that it was his marriage and Emily's life, and I had no business interfering. I told myself he would find another way, and it wouldn't involve you. She stopped. I was wrong. I have known I was wrong for 18 months, and I did nothing with that knowledge. And I am sorry, Richard. I am genuinely sorry. My chest ached, not at Peggy, at the whole shape of the thing, the way Jason had moved from one person to the next, reading each of us finding the angle that would work and the angle that wouldn't, discarding what didn't fit and keeping what did. Peggy had said no, so he had gone to Emily, and Emily had given him the key that Peggy had refused. You didn't know he'd go to her, I said. I should have considered it. Peggy. I said her name the way our mother used to when one of us was being too hard on ourselves. What time does the first flight from LAX get into JFK? A pause. Then I heard typing. There's a red-eye that lands at JFK at 6:10. I'm booking it now. You don't have to... Richard. She said my name the same way I had just said hers. I have a rolling suitcase and a legal pad and a contact at a real estate law firm in Manhattan who owes me a favor from 2014. I will be at JFK at 6:10. You will be there to pick me up. We will figure this out together. A brief pause. Do not contact your daughter or Jason before Friday. Do not send any messages. Do not touch any joint accounts. Do you understand me? I understand. Good. More typing. She was already booking the flight while we were talking, which was exactly the kind of thing Peggy did. One more thing. The name Marcus. I want you to forward that audio file to David Harmon tonight, with a note asking him to look into a Marcus connected to Jason Caldwell's business history in New York. David is good. If there's a public record connecting that name to Jason, he'll find it. I already left him a voicemail. Send the file too. Don't wait for him to call back. A final pause, and when she spoke again, her voice had dropped slightly, not softer, just closer. The voice she used when it was just the two of us, and there was no performance required. How are you doing, actually? I looked at the oven clock. 10:38, Christmas Eve. I've been better, I said. Yes, she said. I imagine you have. A beat. I'll see you at 6:10. After she hung up, I sat at the table for a while longer. The house was quiet around me. Down the hall, Noah was asleep in my bed, taking up considerably more than his fair share of it, which was his established practice regardless of whose bed it was. I forwarded the audio file to David Harmon with a short message. Then I washed my coffee cup, turned off the kitchen light, and walked down the hall. Noah had migrated fully to the center of the mattress. I lay down on the edge with one arm hanging off the side and stared at the ceiling. Peggy would land at 6:10. I had a lot of thinking to do before then. I was already in the arrivals lane at JFK when Peggy came through the sliding doors at 6:17, 7 minutes behind schedule, pulling a rolling suitcase in one hand and holding a legal pad against her chest with the other, like it was a shield she intended to use. She was wearing her gray wool coat and the expression of a woman who had slept approximately 90 minutes on a red-eye flight and was not going to let that slow her down by a single step. She opened the passenger door and got in without ceremony. "Coffee," she said, before anything else. "There's a thermos in the back seat." She reached around, found it, poured, drank. Then she set the cup in the holder and opened her legal pad to a page that was already dense with notes written in her small, precise handwriting. Notes she had made on the plane. I realized somewhere over Nevada or Utah or whatever state sits between California and the rest of the world at 2 in the morning. "David Harmon called me at 5, she said. "He listened to the recording last night after you sent it. He found Marcus." I pulled out of the arrivals lane and merged onto the Van Wyck Expressway heading north. "Already. Business records in New York are public record, Richard. You can access them through the state database. It took him 20 minutes. She ran her finger down the legal pad. Marcus Hale, 41 years old. He and Jason were co-owners of a property management company called Caldwell Hale. Associates registered in Queens County, dissolved 3 years ago after a dispute with a commercial landlord in Flushing. She looked up. "That's not the interesting part." "What's the interesting part?" "Marcus Hale is currently under preliminary investigation by the FBI field office in Newark for mortgage fraud involving 3 residential properties in Bergen County, New Jersey. He has not been charged. The investigation is in early stages." She set the legal pad down. "David has a contact at the U.S. Attorney's Office in Newark, not someone who puts things on the record, but someone who confirmed it as a professional courtesy." She tapped the page. "Which is why he is still walking around freely and making plans involving Florida condominiums. People under preliminary investigation often keep moving. They convince themselves they can outrun it." I let that sit for a moment. The Van Wyck was quiet at this hour, just delivery trucks and the occasional taxi heading back into the city empty. The sky was getting lighter in the east, thin and pale and cold. "So, Marcus is not just someone Jason owes money to," I said. "No, Marcus Hale is Jason's partner, has been in various forms for years. The $47,000 Jason allegedly owes him is not a debt. It is an investment. Marcus put that money into the Florida project early, expecting the loan to close and the cash out to land in the account they set up together." Peggy's voice was even and precise, the voice she had used for 2 decades, summarizing depositions for attorneys who needed the facts without the noise. "You were not a family member being asked for help, Richard. You were a financing mechanism." The words landed cleanly, no softening, no apology, just the shape of the thing. We got home at 7:15. Noah was still asleep somehow, in a configuration on my bed that defied basic geometry. I made a fresh pot of coffee and spread the folder across the kitchen table, and Peggy sat down across from me and went through it page by page with a red pen in her hand, marking things I had missed and confirming things I had caught. At 7:53, David Harmon called. He had a calm, measured voice, the voice of a man who dealt in facts and kept his opinions in a separate drawer. He introduced himself in 2 sentences and moved directly to the matter. Mr. Hayes, I've reviewed the loan application and the audio recording your sister forwarded. I want to walk you through what I'm seeing. A brief pause to organize his thoughts. The application lists you as primary income source and guarantor. That is a material misrepresentation of your actual role, which is cosigner. By inflating your designation, the application was able to support a loan amount significantly higher than what your daughter's income alone would qualify for, moving the approval threshold from approximately $90,000 to $178,000. Emily told me $90,000, I said. Yes. The discrepancy between what you were told and what was submitted is the core of the problem. His voice stayed level. Under Title 18 of the United States Code, Section 1014, knowingly making a false statement on a loan application to a federally insured financial institution is a federal offense. The potential exposure here is significant, up to 30 years and substantial fines. A pause. I want to be clear, whether charges are actually filed is a decision that belongs to federal prosecutors. What I can tell you is that the exposure is real and the documentation you have is substantial. Peggy was watching me from across the table. Her red pen was still. Her coffee was untouched. What do I do Friday? I said. You go, David Harmon said. You arrive on time. You let them believe everything is proceeding normally, and then you let the paperwork speak for itself. I'll be there with you. Another pause. Mr. Hayes, I also want to address the IRA because the account was listed as collateral without your written authorization. Any attempt to attach that account would face immediate legal challenge. Your retirement savings are protected. That will not change regardless of what happens Friday. I felt something loosen in my chest that I had not realized was clenched. Thank you, I said. One more thing. Do not contact your daughter or son-in-law before Friday. Do not move money. Do not change any account access. Just go about your day normally and let me handle the preparation. A final beat. You did the right thing calling your sister. After I hung up, Peggy reached across the table and put her hand over mine for exactly 3 seconds, firm and brief, the way our mother used to when words were not the right tool. Then she picked up her red pen and went back to the folder. At 10 o'clock, Noah wandered into the kitchen in his pajamas, saw Peggy, and launched himself at her with the full-body enthusiasm of a child who had not seen his great-aunt in 4 months. She caught him with both arms and made a sound that was as close to undignified as Peggy Walsh ever got. You're here. Noah pressed his face against her shoulder. Did you bring the lemon cookies? They're in my suitcase. She looked at me over the top of his head. Her eyes were bright in a way that had nothing to do with the overhead light. Go get dressed and I'll find them. He sprinted back down the hall. Peggy watched him go. He has no idea, she said quietly. No, I said. He doesn't. She nodded once and picked up her coffee, and we sat together in the kitchen while Christmas morning assembled itself quietly outside the window. Gray sky, bare trees, the muffled sound of a neighbor's television drifting through the wall. If you are watching this on Revenge Dad and you want to see what happened next, drop Dad in the comments right now. Stay with me. A note before we continue: this story includes fictional elements added for storytelling and educational purposes. Details may not reflect any specific situation. If this is not content you want to continue with, you are free to step away at any time. The Chase Branch on 5th Avenue does not look like a place where families come apart. It has marble floors the color of old cream and the kind of lighting that makes everything look slightly more dignified than it actually is. There are 2 potted plants near the entrance that have clearly never been watered by anyone who particularly cared whether they lived. A small wreath still hung on the interior door, a leftover from Christmas, slightly lopsided, as if it had given up trying to stay centered. The security guard near the entrance was a heavyset man in his 50s who nodded at me when I walked in, with the practiced neutrality of someone who had seen enough to know that the people who looked the most ordinary were sometimes there for the most extraordinary reasons. I was 40 minutes early. David Harmon had told me to arrive before them. Get settled, he had said. Let the room be yours before they walk in. It was the kind of advice that sounded simple and was not. Peggy and I sat in the waiting area while David arranged things with the branch manager, a younger man who had clearly been briefed and was handling it with the careful professionalism of someone who understood that what was about to happen in his conference room was above his pay grade, but very much his responsibility. He brought us water. He offered coffee. He did not make small talk, which I appreciated. Margaret Osei appeared from around the corner at 9:51. She saw me, and something moved briefly across her face, not surprise, more like a quiet confirmation of something she had suspected. She shook my hand, then Peggy's, then David's. She led us down a short hallway to a conference room with a rectangular table, 6 chairs, a window that looked out onto Fifth Avenue, and a fake poinsettia in a ceramic pot on the credenza that was significantly more convincing than the wreath out front. We sat. David placed his briefcase on the table and opened it. Peggy set her legal pad in front of her and uncapped her pen. I put my folder on the table and folded my hands on top of it and looked at the door. At 10:04, I heard them in the hallway. Emily's voice, first lower than usual, controlled the voice she used when she was working to appear relaxed. Then Jason's footsteps, which I recognized without knowing. I had memorized them, the particular rhythm of a man who walked like he owned whatever floor he was standing on. The door opened. Emily came in first. She was wearing a dark green coat I had not seen before, and her hair was done the way she did it for important occasions. Her eyes swept the room. Me, Peggy, David Harmon, and the smile she had prepared for this moment arrived half a second late and did not reach her eyes. "Dad," she said it with a warmth that cost her something to produce. "You came. I said I would." I told her. Then Jason stepped in behind her. He was wearing a charcoal blazer over a dark shirt. No tie, the studied casualness of a man who wanted to appear comfortable in any room. He looked at me first, a quick assessment, the kind you don't notice unless you're looking for it. Then he saw Peggy. His jaw shifted just slightly the way a door shifts when the foundation beneath it has moved. Then he saw David Harmon, the folder, the briefcase, the legal pad covered in Peggy's precise handwriting. Something passed over Jason Caldwell's face in that moment that I had never seen there before. It was not anger, it was not guilt. It was the expression of a man who has been running a very careful calculation in his head for a very long time and has just realized that one of the numbers was wrong. "Who is that?" he said. His voice was still smooth. He was good at smooth. "My attorney," I said. "David Harmon. He'll be sitting in with us today." Jason looked at Emily. Emily looked at the table. "That's not necessary," Jason said. "This is a family matter, a straightforward closing. We don't need—" "Sir," David Harmon spoke without raising his voice, without any particular emphasis, with the calm of a man who had been in considerably more contentious rooms than this one. "My client has the right to have counsel present at any proceeding in which he is being asked to execute a legal document. That right is not subject to your preference." Jason pulled out the chair to Emily's left and sat down without another word. His jaw was tight. His hands were flat on the table. Emily sat beside him. She reached for the glass of water in front of her and drank from it, and I watched her hand, and it was not entirely steady. Margaret Osei took her seat at the head of the table. She opened her folder and set out the closing documents in a neat stack. Efficient, professional. The expression on her face was the same one she had worn when she told me, "Your daughter, sir," composed, giving nothing away, doing her job. "Before we begin," I said. Everyone looked at me. I put my hand on the folder in front of me, the same blue folder Emily had given me 4 months ago, with the sticky note in her handwriting. "Love you," it had said. "Love you" sign, where marked. "I'd like to go through the numbers together," I said. "All of them, before anyone signs anything." Jason's mouth opened. David Harmon looked at him with an expression that was technically pleasant and actually immovable. Jason closed his mouth. I opened the folder. I had built things my entire life by starting with the foundation and working up. So that is what I did. I took the first page out of the folder and laid it flat on the table where everyone could see it. The original loan application. My name on the cosigner line. Emily's income, Jason's income, the initial amount written in black ink that Emily had quoted to me at my kitchen table in August, while Noah played on the floor between us. $90,000, I said. That is what my daughter told me this loan was for. Roof repair and credit card debt consolidation. 90,000. I set the first amendment on top of it. 6 weeks after I signed, the application was amended. The amount changed. I set the second amendment beside it. 3 weeks after that, it was amended again. Third amendment, and once more after that. Each time the number went up. Each time no one called me. Jason shifted in his chair. The movement was small and controlled, but I had been watching him long enough by then to notice it. "Richard," he said, and his voice had the careful texture of a man rebuilding his composure in real time. These amendments were standard adjustments based on updated appraisal information. We can go through the technical details at home with more time. The final amount, I said as if he had not spoken, is $178,000. I placed the loan summary page in the center of the table, turned so that everyone at the table could read the number in bold print at the top. Emily's hands folded in front of her, pressed together until her knuckles went white. I continued. Of that amount, $52,400 is designated as cash out, meaning it would be dispersed directly to the borrower at closing, separate from the mortgage and debt consolidation. I slid the email printout to the center of the table. Palmetto Bay Residential, Naples, Florida. Unit 4, B, deposit required $52,000. This arrived in Jason's email in November. Tyler Caldwell photographed it at Thanksgiving. The room went the particular kind of quiet that happens when several people are working very hard not to react. Additionally, I said, my IRA account, $180,000 accumulated over 35 years of work, was listed in this application as collateral. I did not authorize that. There is no written documentation of my consent because I never gave it. Jason's jaw was tight enough that I could see the muscle working beneath the skin. And finally, I reached into the folder and removed the page Peggy had flagged with a red tab at 2 a.m. on Christmas Day. This application lists me as primary income source and guarantor. I agreed to be a co-signer. Those are not the same designation. By listing me as guarantor, the application was able to qualify for a loan amount nearly double what my daughter's income alone would support. I looked up from the pages. I did not agree to any of this, I said. I agreed to $90,000 for a roof. Jason's chair scraped back slightly. Richard, you're misreading. Sir, David Harmon's voice arrived in the room like a hand placed flat on a table, firm, final. Misrepresenting a co-signer's designation to inflate loan approval is a potential violation of Title 18 of the United States Code, Section 1014. That is a federal statute governing false statements made to federally insured financial institutions. He paused one beat. I would strongly encourage you to stop talking. Jason looked at Emily. Emily was staring at a point on the table, approximately 6 inches in front of her water glass. Her shoulders had risen toward her ears. Her jaw was moving the way jaws move when someone is trying very hard not to cry and is not entirely succeeding. I reached into my jacket pocket and took out Noah's tablet. I set it on the table. I pressed play. Jason's voice filled the conference room, smooth, unhurried, completely certain of itself. Just the opening lines. He doesn't know the difference between a co-signer and a guarantor. He never reads anything. He just signs because you're his daughter. The sound of it in that room, with the marble floors and the fake poinsettia and the closing document spread across the table, was something I will not forget for the rest of my life. Emily made a sound, small, involuntary, the sound of someone who has just stepped on something sharp in the dark. Her hand came up and covered her mouth. Jason's face had gone the color of the marble floor. He pushed his chair back an inch, then stopped as if he had started to stand and thought better of it. I let it keep playing the account, the transfer Marcus, all of it, until the 6 minutes were done. David Harmon said, without turning his head, Marcus Hale is currently under preliminary FBI investigation for mortgage fraud in New Jersey and was both a creditor to and a financial beneficiary of this loan application. That constitutes conspiracy to commit bank fraud under federal law. I stopped the recording. Emily's shoulders broke. Not dramatically, just the particular collapse that happens when a person has been holding something up for a very long time and the muscles finally give. She pressed both hands flat on the table and her breath came out in pieces. Dad! Her voice was wrecked, stripped down to something I had not heard from her since she was very small and had broken something she could not fix. We needed the money. Jason owes $47,000 to Marcus. Marcus threatened to file a civil judgment and attach the house if we didn't pay by January. She stopped, drew a breath that shook all the way down. Jason said if we got the cash out, we could pay Marcus back and have enough left for the deposit. He said we'd pay your IRA back before you ever found out. He said, Emily! Jason's voice came out sharp and low. Stop! Her head turned toward him. For a moment, she just looked at him. Really looked the way you look at something. When the version of it you had been seeing finally comes apart and you are left with what was actually there the whole time. She did not stop. He told me you'd never read it carefully enough to notice. He said you trusted me too much to question it. Her voice broke on the last word, and her eyes filled and spilled over 2 tears running straight down, and she did not wipe them. He was right about that part, Dad. He was right about that. The room held that for a moment. Then I reached into the folder one last time and took out the card. Red construction paper, crooked edges, 4 stick figures under a lopsided triangle that was meant to be at a Christmas tree. The handwriting of a 7-year-old who had decided on his own that his grandfather needed to know the truth. I placed it on the table in front of Emily. She looked down at it, her breath caught. "Your son made this for me," I said. "He hid it in his backpack when you told him to throw it away. He also gave me the recording." I let that sit for exactly 1 breath. He is 7 years old, and he understood something that took me a little longer. Emily pressed her fingers to the card and did not speak. Her shoulders shook once silently, and then she pulled herself still. Margaret Ozzie cleared her throat gently. She looked at me with the same composed, careful expression she had worn on Jamaica Avenue 2 days ago, when she had told me your daughter, sir, and waited to see what I would do with it. "Mr. Hayes," she said, "will need your decision." Margaret Ozzie was looking at me. Everyone in that room was looking at me. I looked back at them, at the folder spread across the table, at the email from Palmetto Bay Residential, at Noah's red Christmas card lying open beside the closing documents at my daughter's face, with the tears still drying on it, at Jason Caldwell, sitting with his jaw set and his hands flat on the table, like a man waiting for a verdict he had already calculated. I thought about Emily at 5 years old, falling off her bicycle on the sidewalk in front of our house on a Sunday afternoon in October. The way she had looked up at me from the pavement, not crying yet, just startled, checking my face to understand how bad it was. I had picked her up and held her and told her she was fine, even before I knew whether she was. That was the reflex, 34 years of it. I closed the folder. "I'm not signing," I said. The words came out the way I had hoped they would, quiet level without drama. Not angry, not triumphant, just true. I looked at Margaret Ozzie. "Thank you for your time." She nodded once with the careful dignity of a professional who had seen this room go many different directions and had learned not to show relief at any of them. Jason's chair scraped back hard. He stood up, both hands pressing down on the table, and for a moment I thought he was going to say something that would change the shape of this day permanently. His eyes moved from me to David Harmon, to Peggy, to Emily. And whatever he saw in those 4 faces was apparently not what he needed, because when he finally spoke, his voice came out thin and stripped of all its usual smoothness. "You're making a mistake," he said. I looked at him steadily. "No, I made the mistake. I made it when I signed a document I didn't read carefully because I believed that love was a sufficient substitute for attention. I won't make it again." "What about the house?" His voice cracked at the edges now, the composure finally giving way to something that sounded almost like panic. "What about Emily? What happens to them?" "I made a promise about a roof," I said. "I intend to keep that promise, through an attorney with documented terms for exactly the $90,000 I originally agreed to, not $1 more." Jason stared at me for a moment longer. Then he picked up his jacket from the back of his chair, and he walked out of the conference room, without looking at Emily, without looking at anyone. The door did not slam. It clicked shut behind him, with the quiet finality of a man who had already moved on to whatever calculation came next. That was the last time I saw Jason Caldwell. Emily sat very still. Her hands were in her lap now, one wrapped around the other, and she was staring at the door he had just walked through, with an expression I recognized, not heartbreak exactly, more like the particular bewilderment of someone watching the last piece of something fall into place that makes the whole picture suddenly irreversibly clear. David Harmon leaned toward Margaret Ozzie, and they spoke quietly for a few minutes about the technical process of removing my name from the application, a conversation that was necessary and procedural, and which I did not need to participate in. Peggy sat beside me through all of it, legal pad open, her pen moving steadily across the page the way it always did when she needed something solid to hold on to, and I was grateful for both of them in a way that had no clean words attached to it. After about 15 minutes, David Harmon looked up. "Your name will be fully removed from this application by end of business today," he said. "Your IRA is untouched and protected. Your credit profile is unaffected." He paused. "I'll be in contact with you next week about the separate agreement for the roof repair if you'd like to proceed with that." "I would," I said. Emily's head came up. She looked at me, really looked the way she had looked at Jason a few minutes ago, except in the opposite direction, like she was trying to find something she was afraid might not be there anymore. You'd still... She stopped, started again. After all of this, you'd still help with the roof. I told you I would help with the roof, I said. I keep my word, that has not changed. I held her eyes. Some other things have. She pressed her lips together hard. Her chin trembled once, and then she got control of it. We walked out of the conference room in a loose group, named Peggy David Harmon. Emily followed a few steps behind. In the lobby, David shook my hand and told me he would be in touch. Peggy squeezed my arm once briefly and went to get the car. The security guard nodded at me on the way out, the same nod as when I had come in, as if nothing of consequence had occurred between then and now. Outside, the December air hit me like cold water. Sharp. Real. I stood on Fifth Avenue for a moment and just breathed. My phone rang. I looked at the screen. Noah. Grandpa. His voice was small and careful, the voice he used when he already knew something was wrong, but was hoping to be told otherwise. Mom's crying. Is everything okay? My chest tightened and then released in the same breath. It's going to be okay, buddy, I said. Where are you right now? At Mrs. Patterson's. She gave me a cookie, but I didn't eat it yet because I was waiting to find out if you were okay first. Something moved through me. Then that was not quite a laugh and not quite a sob, but lived somewhere between the two. I'm okay, I said. Save me half the cookie. I'm coming to get you. Okay. A small pause. Grandpa? Yeah. I'm glad you went today. I stood on Fifth Avenue in the cold December air, with the phone against my ear and my eyes stinging in a way that had nothing to do with the wind. Me too, buddy, I said. Me too. Mrs. Patterson lived 3 blocks from PS 118 in a narrow 2-story house with a green door and a ceramic nativity scene on the front porch that she put out every December 1st and took down every January 2nd with the precision of someone who had strong feelings about the appropriate duration of holiday displays. She was standing in the doorway when I pulled up, which told me Noah had been watching from my truck through the front window. He came out before I had fully stopped, backpack over one shoulder, the half-eaten cookie still in his hand. His red scarf rewound somewhat haphazardly around his neck. He had clearly done it himself. Mrs. Patterson raised a hand in my direction. I raised one back. No words needed. She went inside and closed the green door. Noah climbed into the back seat and buckled himself before I could reach back to help, which was something he had started doing about 2 months ago and which he was extremely proud of. I saved you the other half, he said, and held the cookie over the center console. It was a sugar cookie, the kind with thick white frosting and red sprinkles shaped like a Christmas tree. I took it. I ate it in 2 bites. It was very sweet and slightly stale, and it was the best thing I had tasted in 3 days. Thank you, I said. Was it good? It was excellent. He nodded satisfied and settled back in his seat. I did not drive immediately. I sat for a moment with the engine running, looking at the street in front of me, the row houses, the bare trees, the particular quiet of a neighborhood on the day after Christmas, when everyone has retreated indoors with their new things and their leftover food and their complicated feelings about their families. Grandpa. Noah's voice came from the back seat, careful and measured in a way that told me he had been thinking about what he wanted to say for a while. Did something happen today? Something important. Yes, I said. Something important happened today. Is Mom okay? I thought about Emily in that conference room, her shoulders breaking, her hands pressing flat on the table, 2 tears running straight down her face. I thought about the way she had looked at Jason when he walked out, not chasing him, not calling after him, just watching the door close with the expression of someone finally seeing a thing clearly. She will be, I said. It's going to take some time, but she will be. Noah absorbed this with the particular seriousness of a child who has learned that some answers are true and complete even when they are not the answers you were hoping for. Okay, he said. I pulled away from the curb and drove the 3 blocks to PS 118 on Elmhurst Avenue. The school parking lot was empty on the day after Christmas, the playground equipment standing silent and cold under a white sky. I pulled in and cut the engine, and we sat there for a moment, looking at the swings and the climbing structure and the painted hopscotch grid on the blacktop that the December weather had faded to almost nothing. You want to sit outside for a few minutes? I asked. Yeah, Noah said. Okay. We got out and sat on the bench near the chain link fence, the one where I waited for him every afternoon at 3 o'clock. The cold came through my coat, but not unpleasantly. Noah sat beside me with his backpack in his lap, holding it the same way he had been holding it when I picked him up at Mrs. Patterson's, carefully, like something inside needed protecting. "Grandpa," he said, "can I ask you something?" "You can always ask me something." He looked down at the backpack in his lap. His small fingers worked the zipper pull back and forth the way he did when he was thinking something through. "Dad always says money is why everything goes wrong," he said. "Is that true?" The words landed with the quiet precision of a 7-year-old who had been listening to conversations he was not supposed to understand and had understood more of them than anyone realized. "No," I said. "Money isn't why things go wrong. Money is just money. It's what people do when they're scared that goes wrong." Noah turned this over. "Like when I get scared of the dark and I hide under the covers instead of turning on the light." "Exactly like that," I said. "Hiding under the covers doesn't make the dark go away. It just makes you lonelier." He thought about that for a long moment, his fingers still working the zipper. Then he unzipped the backpack all the way and reached inside with both hands. He took out the Christmas card, red construction paper, crooked edges. The glitter that Ms. Delgado's class had used was mostly gone, now worn away from 3 days of being carried around in a backpack by a 7-year-old who had decided it was too important to leave anywhere. One corner was bent. There was a small smudge of frosting near the bottom edge from the sugar cookie. Noah held it out to me with both hands. "I made it because I always want you to come," he said. His voice was very serious and very clear. The voice he used when he had decided something mattered. Even when things are complicated, even then. My throat tightened until I had to breathe through it. I took the card. I opened it. 4 stick figures under a lopsided triangle that was meant to be a Christmas tree. A yellow circle that was the sun even though it was December. In the bottom right corner, in the careful block, letters of a child who had recently learned to write his name, 2 words, "Best Grandpa." I sat on that cold bench in the empty parking lot of PS 118 on the day after Christmas, and I did not try to hold anything back. My eyes burned and filled, and I let them because Noah was 7 years old, and he had seen enough adults pretending things did not hurt them to last a lifetime, and I did not want to be one more. He leaned against my arm. He did not say anything. He just leaned there small and warm and let me have the moment, which was more than most people would have known to do. After a while, my phone buzzed in my coat pocket. I looked at the screen. Emily. The first time she had called me without Jason in the room. I looked at the time before I answered. 4:17 in the afternoon. The sky over Queens had gone the color of a bruised, dark purple at the edges, fading to gray at the center. The particular kind of December sky that arrives like a reminder that the sun has other places to be. Noah was watching me look at the phone. He did not ask who it was. He already knew. I answered. "Dad." Emily's voice came through thin and scraped the voice of someone who had been crying for a while and had not entirely stopped. I didn't know who else to call. "It's all right," I said. "I'm here." A breath on her end, shaky at the edges. "Jason left." I kept my eyes on the chain link fence in front of me, on the place where 2 of the links had been bent apart by years of children climbing things they were not supposed to climb. "Tell me what happened," I said. "After the bank." She stopped, started again. "He drove home. I thought maybe we could, I don't know, talk, figure something out. But when I got there, he had already packed a bag, just one bag, like he had known exactly which things he was going to take." Her voice broke on the last word, and she pulled it back together with an audible effort, the sound of a woman who had been doing that all afternoon. "He said this was my fault, that I should have managed you better, that if I had kept you out of the paperwork the way he told me to, none of this would have happened." The anger that moved through me then was quiet and deep, the kind that does not make noise. "He said you should have managed me," I said. "Yes." And then he left. He took the bag and got in his car and drove away. A pause. "I don't know where he went. I don't know if he's coming back. I don't—" Her voice fractured again, and this time she let it. "Dad, I don't know anything right now." Noah had shifted beside me on the bench. He had turned slightly away, giving me what privacy a 7-year-old knows how to give, which was not much but was genuinely offered. "Emily," I said, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer me honestly." "Okay." "Tyler told me about his mother, Linda Caldwell. What happened to her in 2019? The silence that followed was different from the ones before it. Heavier, the silence of someone who has been waiting for a specific door to open and is not entirely surprised that it finally has. "I knew," Emily said. Her voice had gone very quiet. "Jason told me about it early on when we were still dating. He said it was a misunderstanding, that the loan structure had been more complicated than Linda understood, and that it went wrong because of the market, not because of anything he did." She stopped. "I believed him. Or, I wanted to believe him. There's a difference, and for a long time, I told myself it was the first one." "But you knew," I said. "Not an accusation, just the fact of it laid flat." "I knew." Her voice dropped further. "Every time Jason asked me to push forward with your paperwork, I thought about Linda. Every single time. And I kept telling myself this was different, that we would pay you back, that you would never find out, that the end result would be okay, even if the process wasn't." A long, unsteady breath. "I kept moving the line, Dad. Every time I should have stopped, I moved the line instead." Noah had turned back toward me now. He was looking at my face with the careful attention of a child reading an adult, the way adults sometimes forget children can. I put my free hand on his knee briefly. He put his hand over mine. "Is Noah with you?" Emily asked. "He's right here." "Is he?" She stopped. "Is he okay?" "He's okay. He's good." I looked at my grandson. "He saved me half a cookie." Emily made a sound that was somewhere between a laugh and a sob, a single note compressed and complicated. "Dad, I am so sorry." The words came out without preparation, without the careful framing she had been using for months when she talked about the loan. Just the words themselves, raw and unfinished. Not just for the paperwork, for all of it, for Christmas, for what Jason said to you on the phone, for letting Noah hear that, for, her voice broke apart completely, for forgetting what Mom said. My chest ached in a way that had no clean location. "I know," I said. "I remembered it every time. I want you to know that. I didn't forget it. I remembered it, and I did it anyway. And that's worse, isn't it? That's so much worse." "Emily," I said her name the way I had said it when she was young and had done something she could not take back and needed someone to tell her that the world was not ending. "We'll talk tomorrow, in person, somewhere quiet." "Okay." A small, exhausted word. "Is Noah safe staying with me tonight?" "Yes, please, yes." She said it 3 times, which told me everything about how she was doing. I need to just sit here for a while, in this house, and figure out which parts of the last 3 years were real. Take all the time you need." "Dad." Her voice came back steadier now, stripped down to something essential. "Thank you for going today. I know it wasn't easy." "No," I said. "It wasn't. But you went anyway." "I went anyway," I said. "That's what you do." After I hung up, I sat on the bench for a moment with the phone in my hand and the December sky darkening above the empty playground. Noah leaned against my arm again, patient and warm in the way he had of making his presence known without demanding anything from it. "Grandpa," he said after a while, "can we get hot chocolate on the way home?" I looked at him. 7 years old, red scarf rewound haphazardly, one sock still trying to escape his sneaker, completely serious about the hot chocolate. "Yeah, buddy," I said. "We can get hot chocolate." He slid off the bench and picked up his backpack, and I stood up from the cold wood and we walked back to the truck together in the early dark of a December afternoon in Queens, and I thought about what Emily had said. Which parts of the last 3 years were real? I thought about that question the whole drive home. Flushing Meadows Corona Park in late December is not a place that tries to make you feel better. The fountain at the center is off for the season, the basin empty and gray with old leaves banked against the concrete edges. The grass has gone the color of dry straw. The trees are bare and indifferent. The Unisphere, that enormous steel globe that has stood at the center of the park since the World's Fair in '64, rises above everything in the cold morning air, with the particular authority of something that has outlasted every problem anyone has ever brought to its vicinity and intends to outlast several more. I had always liked this park for exactly that reason. It did not perform cheerfulness. It was simply there. Emily was already on the bench when Noah and I arrived. She was wearing a coat I recognized from 3 years ago, a dark navy one with a missing button on the left cuff that she had been meaning to replace since the previous winter. She was holding a paper coffee cup in both hands and staring at the empty fountain basin, and when she heard us coming, she looked up with the face of someone who had not slept and had made peace with that fact sometime around 3 in the morning. Noah ran to her immediately the way he always ran to her without reservation, without accounting for what had happened the day before, because he was 7 years old and she was his mother, and those two facts outweighed everything else. She caught him with both arms and buried her face in his neck and held on. Her shoulders shook once, just once, and then she straightened and kissed the top of his head and sent him off toward the open stretch of grass near the path where he liked to run in large purposeless circles for reasons that remained his own. She looked at me. I sat down on the bench beside her. For a moment, we both watched Noah run. He had found a stick somewhere between the parking lot and the grass, which meant the next 20 minutes of his life had a clear and satisfying structure. I didn't sleep, Emily said. I know. I kept going over it. She wrapped her hands tighter around the coffee cup. Every conversation, every time he asked me to move forward, every time I told myself it was okay. She shook her head slowly, not at me, at herself. I got very good at telling myself things were okay. Emily. I said her name quietly. Say what you need to say. All of it. She looked at the empty fountain for a long moment. Then she drew a breath that went all the way down. When Jason first brought up the refinance, she said, I thought it was straightforward. We needed the roof done, we had the credit card debt, and he said having you on the application would help us qualify for better terms. That part was true. She paused. But then the amount started changing, and I knew. I knew it wasn't just the roof anymore. And instead of calling you, I told myself you didn't need the stress, that you'd been through enough since Mom died, that I was protecting you. You were protecting yourself from my answer, I said, because you knew what I'd say. She did not flinch from that. Yes, she said. I knew exactly what you'd say. You'd have said you wanted to help, but not like this. You'd have asked questions until the whole thing fell apart. And I needed it not to fall apart because I was scared, Dad. I was so scared of losing the house, of what that would mean, of telling Noah we had to move, of... Her voice cracked and she pressed her lips together hard until she had control of it again. I let being scared turn me into someone I don't recognize. Across the grass, Noah had stopped running and was using his stick to investigate something near the base of a tree. Whatever it was had his complete and serious attention. Tell me about Mom, I said. Emily went very still beside me. The paper coffee cup in her hands compressed slightly as her grip tightened. The last week, she said. Her voice had changed quieter now, moving more carefully the way you move, in a room where something fragile has been set down. In the hospital, it was just the two of us one afternoon. You had gone to get coffee and the nurses had just been in, and it was quiet for a few minutes. She stopped. She took my hand. She looked at me the way she looked at people when she was being completely serious. You know how she did? Like she was making sure you were actually in the room with her. I knew exactly how she did. She said, Emily's voice broke on the word, and she stopped and breathed through it. Her eyes were bright and spilling. She said, Your father trusts completely. It's the best thing about him, and it's the thing that could hurt him most. Don't let anyone use it against him. She pressed the back of her hand against her mouth for a moment. Those were her exact words. I have never forgotten them. Not for one single day. The park was very quiet around us. Somewhere behind us, a jogger went by, on the path, footsteps fading. Somewhere above us, a bird. I thought about it every time Jason pushed me to take another step, Emily said. I want you to know that. I thought about Mom saying those words, and I kept going anyway. Her voice dropped to something just above a whisper. I don't know how to explain that. I don't know how to make it make sense. I kept thinking the end would justify it. That by the time you found out we'd have paid it back and it would just be a thing that happened. A hard thing, but a finished one. She turned to look at me directly for the first time since we sat down. Her eyes were red and wet and completely open, in a way I had not seen from her in years, unguarded in the way children's eyes are unguarded before they learn to manage what they show. What would you have said? She asked. If I had come to you honestly, in the beginning, before any of it. I looked at my daughter, 34 years old, sitting on a park bench in a coat with a missing button, holding a coffee cup that had gone cold, asking me the question she had spent months avoiding. I would have helped you, I said, not with $178,000 and a Florida condo, but with the roof, with the debt that was real. I would have sat down with you and figured it out, and it would have been messy and honest, and we would have gotten through it. I held her eyes. That's what I would have said. Emily pressed her lips together, 2 tears broke loose and ran straight down, and she did not wipe them the same way she had not wiped them in the conference room the day before. "I know," she said. I knew that then, too. Noah came running back across the grass, stick in hand, his red scarf streaming behind him. He skidded to a stop in front of us and looked at our faces with the rapid, accurate assessment of a child who has learned to read rooms. "Are you guys being sad together?" he asked. Emily let out a breath that was almost a laugh. "Yeah, buddy," she said. "A little bit?" He considered this with great seriousness. Then he held out the stick. "You can have this if you want," he said. It helped me. Emily took the stick. She held it with both hands and looked at it, and then looked at her son, and something in her face shifted, softened, and broke open. At the same time, the particular expression of a parent who has just been handed something they did not know they needed by someone too young to understand why they were giving it. "Thank you," she said. "I'll keep it." Noah nodded, satisfied, and dropped down to sit between us on the bench, his small, warm weight settling against my side. "Grandpa," he said, "I'm hungry." I put my arm around him. "There's a diner on Junction Boulevard," I said. "They do pancakes until noon. Do they have chocolate chip ones? I would be surprised if they didn't." He slid off the bench, immediately ready to go. The sadness of the last 2 minutes already processed and filed away in the particular efficient manner of children who live completely in the present tense. Emily stood. She looked at me over the top of his head. "I need something from you first," I said, "before we figure out the rest." We got the pancakes. Noah ordered chocolate chip and ate them with the focused intensity of someone who had been promised something and was making sure he got every bit of it. Emily ordered coffee and toast and ate neither. I ordered eggs and managed about half. When Noah excused himself to go look at the gumball machine near the door, a negotiation that had cost me 2 quarters, Emily and I were finally alone at the table. "You said you needed something from me first," she said. "3 things," I said. "Not negotiable, not because I'm angry, because this is what comes next if we're gonna move forward honestly." She set her coffee cup down and looked at me steadily. The raw openness from the park was still there in her face. She had not put anything back up yet. "Us first," I said. "Any financial help going forward from me from anyone goes through an attorney. Documented terms, notarized, no exceptions. Not because I don't trust you, because we need to rebuild what trust means between us, and that takes structure." "Okay," she said, no hesitation. "Second, Jason does not have access to any financial decision involving this family. If he comes back, that condition stays, non-negotiable." Her jaw tightened slightly, but she did not look away. "Okay. Third," I held her eyes. "You tell Noah what happened. Not everything, not in a way that frightens him or puts adult weight on his shoulders, but enough truth that he understands why things are different now. He is 7 years old, and he has been carrying pieces of this without anyone giving him the language for it. He deserves better than that." Emily's chin trembled once the same single tremor I had watched her suppress a dozen times in the last 2 days. This time, she let it happen. "He gave me a stick," she said quietly, "because it helped him. I know. Okay?" She said it the 3rd time, and this time it carried the weight of all 3 answers at once. "All 3. I'll do all 3. We paid the check and drove to David Harmon's office in Midtown. All 3 of us. Noah fell asleep in the back seat before we crossed the bridge, his head against the window mouth slightly open, completely unbothered by the fact that the adults around him were in the middle of dismantling and rebuilding something important. David Harmon's office was on the 31st floor of a building on Lexington Avenue with a view of the East River if you stood at the right angle. He shook Emily's hand without any particular warmth or coldness, just professionalism, clean and level. He went through the paperwork efficiently. Richard's name fully removed from the Caldwell application, as of the previous afternoon. IRA account protected, untouched, no lien possible. Credit profile unaffected. Then he turned to the separate matter. "For the roof repair," David said, "we'll structure this as a promissory note. Your father's contribution of $90,000, documented terms, a repayment schedule that is realistic for your income, notarized by both parties." He looked at Emily. "This protects you both. Your father's contribution is on record. Your obligation is clear. There are no misunderstandings about what was agreed to." Emily looked at me. "You're still doing it," she said. "The roof." "I told you I would help with the roof," I said. "I keep my word. That's the whole point." She pressed her lips together hard and nodded and looked at the East River out the window for a moment, blinking. Peggy sat beside me through all of it, legal pad in hand, making notes in her small, precise handwriting, being exactly what she had always been, the person who showed up. On the ride back to Queens, my phone buzzed on the seat beside me. Tyler, a text message simple and direct. Is Mr. Hayes. Okay, I've been thinking about him, and I think there's something else you should know about Jason. I read it twice. Then I texted back, call me tonight. I'll be home by 8. Tyler called at 8:53. I was in the kitchen with Peggy, the remains of a reheated dinner between us. Leftover rice, some chicken. Peggy had put together from whatever was in my refrigerator, the quiet domesticity of two people who had been through something together and had not yet found the need to talk about it again. Noah was asleep down the hall. The house was settled and still. I put the phone on speaker so Peggy could hear. Mr. Hayes. Tyler's voice sounded different from the first time he had called, less rehearsed, more tired, the voice of someone who had been carrying something for a while and had decided tonight was the night to set it down completely. I'm glad you're okay. I wasn't sure how today would go. It went the way it needed to, I said. What did you want to tell me? A breath on his end. Then he began. My mother's name is Linda Caldwell. She's 62 years old, and she lives in Elk Grove now with her younger sister. Before 2019, she had a house in Sacramento, 3 bedrooms, a yard, a lemon tree in the back that she had planted herself the year I was born. He said that last detail carefully, like it mattered because it did. Jason came to her in the spring of 2019. He said he had a business opportunity, a property management venture in the Bay Area. He said all he needed was someone with a clean credit profile to co-sign a loan. He said the risk was minimal. He said he would handle everything. She signed, I said. She signed. Tyler's voice was flat, and even the voice of someone who had told this story enough times in his own head that the telling of it no longer required emotion, just accuracy. You already know what happened after that. But what I hadn't told you was the lemon tree. She planted it herself the year I was born in the backyard of that Sacramento house. When she lost the house in the spring of 2020, she took a cutting before the keys went back. She carried it to Elk Grove in a plastic cup. It's in a pot at her sister's place now. A pause. I remember the day we finished. She didn't cry until we locked the front door for the last time. Then she just stood on the porch and looked at it for a while. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. Peggy had set her fork down. She was looking at the table. Tyler, I said, I'm sorry. I cut contact with Jason after that. I told him I was done. His voice tightened at the edges. And then, at Thanksgiving, I walked into his office to get my jacket, and I saw that email on his laptop. Naples, Florida. And I recognized the shape of it, Mr. Hayes. I recognized it immediately because I had seen it before. The same structure, the same language. A family member, a clean credit profile. A loan that was described as something much simpler than what it actually was. He researches people. Peggy said quietly, more to herself than to either of us. Yes, ma'am. Tyler had heard her. He does. He figures out what a person is afraid to lose and who they can't say no to. With my mother, it was me he knew she'd do anything for her son. With Mr. Hayes, it was Emily. A beat. He had been planning to leave Queens for 18 months. I found that out from a contractor friend of his who called me last week looking for a forwarding address. Jason had been talking about Florida since early last year. He had Marcus lined up. He had the deposit timeline mapped out. He just needed the signature. The kitchen was quiet around us. I thought about Jason Caldwell sitting at my kitchen table at various holidays. Over the past 3 years, eating the food I had cooked, laughing at the right moments, being exactly the kind of son-in-law you think you can trust. I thought about how long it takes to plan something like that. How many dinners? How many ordinary evenings? Where is he now? I asked. He crossed into Pennsylvania the day of the bank meeting. I know because he called Emily from a number with a Pittsburgh area code. Tyler paused. Once the FBI formally opens a case on Marcus Hale, Jason becomes a material witness at minimum. David Harmon knows. Crossing state lines while connected to a federal investigation changes the category of things considerably. Your mother, I said. How is she? The question seemed to surprise him. A brief silence, genuine this time, not calculated. She's okay, he said. She's been okay for a while now. She has a garden at her sister's place. She grew a lemon tree from a cutting she took before they sold the house. His voice shifted slightly softer, with something underneath it that had not been there before. She doesn't talk about Jason, but she kept the tree. I looked at the window above the kitchen sink, dark outside, the reflection of the overhead light on the glass. Tell her she's not alone in what happened, I said. Tell her someone else's father understands. Tyler did not respond immediately. When he spoke again, his voice was careful and quiet. Mr. Hayes, why are you being kind to me? I'm his son. You're also the person who told me the truth when you didn't have to, I said. That counts for more than you know. Another silence, shorter this time. Thank you, he said. For what it's worth, I'm glad she had you on the other side of this. My mother didn't. After we hung up, Peggy and I sat at the kitchen table for a while, without speaking. The refrigerator hummed. Down the hall, Noah made a small sound in his sleep, and then went quiet. 18 months, Peggy said finally. 18 months, I said. She picked up her fork, looked at it, set it back down. He sat at your table, she said. Yes. He ate your food. Yes. Peggy shook her head slowly, not with anger, with the particular exhaustion of someone who has spent a career in litigation, watching people do things to other people, and has never quite gotten used to it. My phone lit up on the table. Emily, a text message, just 3 words Jason wants back. Emily arrived at 9:41. I know, because Peggy looked at the clock above the stove when we heard the knock and said nothing, and went down the hall to give us the room. That was Peggy. She understood when her presence was useful and when it was not, and she had the self-possession to act on that understanding without being asked. I opened the door. Emily was standing on the porch in her navy coat with the missing button. She had her arms crossed over her chest, the way she used to stand as a teenager when she had something to say, and was not sure yet how to begin. Her eyes were red but dry. She had cried herself out. I guessed sometime in the hours between the diner and now, and what was left was something quieter and more determined. He called, she said. From a number I didn't recognize. He said he made a mistake, that he panicked, that Marcus had pressured him for months and he didn't know how to get out of it, and he thought. She stopped, pressed her lips together. He said he still loves me, that if I give him the chance, he can fix it. I stepped back from the door. She came in. We sat in the living room, the same couch where Noah had slept the last 2 nights, his blanket still folded at one end. I did not say anything immediately. I had learned over 60 years that the most important things people need to say usually arrive in their own time, if you give them room to breathe. Emily looked at her hands in her lap. Part of me wanted to say yes, she said. That's the part I'm most ashamed of. Not what I did with the paperwork, not even what I let happen at Christmas. The part where I heard his voice and some piece of me thought maybe he means it this time. That part isn't shameful, I said. That part is just human. She looked up at me. Something in her face shifted, surprised. Maybe that I had not used that against her. You told Tyler's mother the same thing happened to her, I said. That Jason found what she couldn't say no to. Tyler told you that. He told me tonight, before your message came. Emily absorbed this slowly. I watched her process it, the way her expression moved through surprise and then understanding, and then something harder and more settled. She lost her house, Emily said. Yes. He told her the same things he told me. Not the same words, the same shape. Emily looked at the blanket folded at the end of the couch. Noah's blanket, the one with the faded rocket ships on it, that he had insisted on bringing from home 2 nights ago. She reached out and straightened the edge of it, a small automatic gesture, the kind mothers make without thinking. I keep asking myself, she said, how much of what I felt for him was real, and how much was just. She stopped. He's good at making you feel seen, you know, in the beginning. Like he had found something in you that other people had missed. Her voice had gone very quiet. And then slowly you realized that what he found wasn't something special about you. It was just the place where you could be useful to him. The living room was still around us. From down the hall came the faint sound of Peggy's television. She had turned it on, low, giving us the gift of ambient noise, which was a thoughtful thing to do. Emily, I said, I'm not going to tell you what to do about Jason. She looked at me. He's Noah's father. Whatever you decide about your marriage is your decision, not mine. I have opinions, but they're mine, and this is your life. I held her eyes. What I will tell you is this: I spoke to Tyler tonight. I heard what happened to Linda Caldwell, and I think you already know somewhere you can't quite silence what Jason is capable of and what he will do again when he needs something. Emily did not answer immediately. She looked at the rocket ship blanket, at her hands, at the window. Then she said very quietly, "I'm not going to let him come back. Not now. Maybe not ever." She said it the way you say something when you have been circling it for hours and have finally landed. I need time to understand what was real. I need to do that without him in the house telling me what to think about it. Her voice was steady, not angry, not dramatic, just decided. "And Noah," I said. "Noah needs his father to be someone worth having around," she said. "Right now, I don't know if Jason is that person. I don't know if he ever was." She looked up at me. "But I know that's a decision I have to make clearly, not because I'm angry, not because of what happened at the bank, because it's the right thing for my son." I nodded. She let out a long, slow breath, the breath of someone putting down something heavy. "Can Noah stay with you a few more days?" she asked. "I need to be in that house by myself for a while. I need to walk through every room and figure out which parts of it are mine." "He can stay as long as you need," I said. She stood. I walked her to the door. On the porch she paused and turned back. "Dad." Her voice was different, stripped down to something that had no performance left in it at all. "How do you know when you've actually forgiven someone? Not just said the words, actually done it." I thought about that for a moment. "I think you know," I said, "when you stop needing them to be sorry in order to move forward, when their remorse stops being the thing your next step depends on." She looked at me for a long moment. "I'm not there yet," she said. "I know," I said. "Neither am I." She walked to her car. I stood in the doorway until the taillights disappeared around the corner. Then I went inside and turned off the porch light and stood in the hallway for a moment, listening to the quiet of a house where a child was sleeping. Peggy appeared from down the hall. "Well," she said. "She decided on her own," I said. Peggy nodded once, the nod of someone who had been hoping for exactly that answer. "Good," she said. "That's the only way it counts." The 4 days between Christmas and New Year's have a particular quality that is hard to describe to someone who has not experienced them in New York. The city does not stop exactly, but it slows the way a river slows when it reaches a wide, flat plain, spreading out and going quieter without losing its direction. The garbage trucks still come. The bodegas are still open. The subway still runs. But the particular urgency that drives the city the other 51 weeks of the year seems to take a breath. And in that breath, there is room for things that do not ordinarily fit. Noah stayed with me for 4 days. He woke up every morning already talking a continuous stream of consciousness that began somewhere around 6:30 and covered in no particular order. Questions about whether sharks could survive in the East River, the structural integrity of Lego constructions, built without following the instructions, the fairness of various rules at PS 118, and the ongoing mystery of why grown-ups drank so much coffee when it clearly tasted terrible. I answered all of these questions to the best of my ability. I got most of them wrong, which Noah accepted with patient generosity. Peggy stayed through the 29th. In the mornings, she sat at the kitchen table with her legal pad and handled the last of the paperwork loose ends, confirming the promissory note details, with David Harmon making sure the amended loan file at Chase showed no trace of Richard Hayes, checking in with Tyler once by phone to pass along my message to his mother. In the afternoons, she took Noah to the library on Queens Boulevard because he had, somewhere in the chaos of the last week, decided that he wanted to read every book ever written about volcanoes. And Peggy Walsh was not a woman who left a research project unfinished. In the evenings, the three of us made dinner together. Noah was in charge of stirring things, which he took very seriously. Peggy was in charge of not letting him stir things too vigorously, which she took equally seriously. I was in charge of everything else, which suited me. We ate at the kitchen table with the overhead light on, and the window dark outside, and the television off, and we talked about nothing in particular, and it was the most peaceful I had felt in months. On the morning of the 28th, Noah came into the kitchen while I was making eggs and stood in the doorway watching me for a long moment before he said anything. I had learned over the course of these 4 days to recognize that particular silence, the one that meant he was loading something up. "Grandpa," he said, "did you and Dad ever talk about money?" I turned from the stove. "Sometimes," I said. "Why?" Noah climbed onto the kitchen chair and sat with his feet tucked under him, the way he always did. "Dad told me once." He said carefully the way he said things, when he was not entirely sure he should be saying them, that you wouldn't understand things the way he did, because you're from a different time. He paused. He said you worked with your hands your whole life, and you don't really know how money works now, how it's different. The eggs were done. I turned off the burner and stood there for a moment with the spatula in my hand. Jason Caldwell had sat at my kitchen table at Christmas and Easter and Thanksgiving for 3 years, eating food I had cooked and accepting money I had offered and signing paperwork I had facilitated. And somewhere in the margins of all of that, he had been telling my 7-year-old grandson that his grandfather was a relic, a man too old and too simple to understand the modern machinery of finance, a man you could hand a pen and point to a line. I set the spatula down. I pulled out the chair across from Noah and sat down. "Can I tell you something?" I said. Noah nodded, very serious. "I have been reading contracts since before your father was born," I said. "Building permits, subcontractor agreements, insurance policies, loan documents for equipment that costs more than most people's houses. I have read every word of every piece of paper that had my name on it for 35 years, because in my business, the man who doesn't read the contract is the man who loses everything." I held my grandson's eyes. "I stopped reading one time in 35 years. Do you know why?" Noah shook his head. "Because it was your mother, and I thought that love was a good enough reason to trust without looking." I leaned forward slightly. "Your dad was wrong about one thing, buddy. I understand exactly how money works. I built a life with it, brick by brick, dollar by dollar, 35 years of showing up and doing the work and reading every line." I paused. "What I forgot for a little while is that understanding money and trusting people are two different things. I confused them. That's on me." Noah thought about this with the focused intensity he brought to everything that seemed important. "So, it wasn't because you didn't understand," he said slowly. "It was because you trusted too much." "That's exactly right." He nodded, working through it. "Is trusting too much bad?" "No," I said. "Trusting is not the problem. Trusting without paying attention is the problem. There's a difference." He thought about that for another moment. "Like how I trust that the light will turn green," he said, "but I still look both ways before I cross." I looked at my grandson, 7 years old, feet tucked under him, working out the ethics of trust and attention over a plate of eggs on a Tuesday morning in December. "Exactly like that," I said. "Exactly like that." He seemed satisfied. He reached across and took a piece of toast from my plate, which he had been angling for since he sat down, and began eating it with the uncomplicated contentment of someone who had resolved a philosophical question and was now ready to move on. On the afternoon of the 29th, after Peggy had gone to the airport, Noah and I walked to the park on the corner. Not Flushing Meadows, just the small neighborhood park 3 blocks away, with the 2 swings and the climbing structure that the city had been meaning to replace for at least a decade. We sat on the swings and did not really swing, just pushed off occasionally and let ourselves drift the way you do when the swinging is not the point. "At Grandpa," Noah said. "Do you miss Grandma?" "Every day," I said. "What was she like?" I thought about how to answer that. Not about what to say, I knew what to say. About how to say it in a way that a 7-year-old could carry. "She was very quiet," I said. Not because she didn't have things to say, because she had learned that the people who talk the most are usually the people who are least sure of themselves. She said what she meant, and she meant what she said, and she did not waste a lot of words in between. "Like you," Noah said. That surprised me enough that I laughed, a real laugh, the kind that comes from somewhere you were not expecting. "Maybe," I said, "she would say I still use too many." Noah smiled and pushed off with his feet drifting forward and back. "I think she'd be glad you didn't sign," he said. I looked at him. "I think so too," I said. On the 30th, Noah found the photograph. He had been in my bedroom getting his book, the volcano one, from the library which he carried everywhere now, with the devotion of a convert, and when he came back to the kitchen, he was holding something else as well. A photograph in a plain wooden frame, the one I kept in the drawer of my nightstand, because I looked at it before I slept, and I had never wanted to explain that to anyone. It was a photograph from 1989, Margaret and I on the front steps of the first house we ever owned, a narrow row house in Elmhurst, that we bought with a down payment that had taken us 4 years to save. We were both squinting into the sun. She was laughing at something I had just said. I was looking at her instead of the camera. "Is this you and Grandma?" Noah asked. "It is." He looked at it carefully, the way he looked at the volcano books, with genuine scholarly attention. "You're looking at her," he said, "not at the camera." "I know." "Why?" I looked at the photograph for a moment. "Because the camera wasn't the most interesting thing in the frame," I said. Noah considered this. Then he set the photograph very carefully on the kitchen table, propped against the fruit bowl, so it was standing up facing the room. "I think it should be out where you can see it," he said. "Not in a drawer." I looked at the photograph standing against the fruit bowl, Margaret laughing in 1989 on the steps of the first thing we had ever built together. "You're right," I said. "It should." On New Year's Eve, Peggy was gone, and it was just the two of us. I made pasta the simple kind, just garlic and olive oil and whatever cheese was in the refrigerator, and Noah declared it the best dinner he had ever eaten, which was the kind of statement he made about most dinners, but I appreciated it anyway. At 11:45, we turned off all the lights in the living room and sat on the couch by the window and watched the glow of fireworks from somewhere across the borough. We could not see them directly, just the light they threw against the clouds, blooms of color that appeared and faded and appeared again. Noah fell asleep at 11:58. 2 minutes before midnight, slumped against my shoulder, with his mouth open and his book still in his hands, having informed me earlier in the evening that he fully intended to stay awake until 12 and see the new year in properly. I sat in the dark with my sleeping grandson against my shoulder and watched the light bloom and fade against the December clouds and thought about the year that was ending and the one that was beginning, and the photograph now standing on the kitchen table where I could see it. At midnight, somewhere across Queens, someone set off a string of firecrackers that rattled the window glass. Noah did not stir. I did not move. Outside, the new year arrived the way most important things arrive, not with fanfare, not with warning, just with the quiet insistence of time doing what time does. My phone lit up on the cushion beside me. Emily. A text. "Happy New Year, Dad." "Noah?" "Okay." I typed back with one hand, careful not to wake him. "He's perfect. Happy New Year." A pause. Then, "Can I come over tomorrow morning? I have something for you." I looked at the glow fading from the clouds. I typed, "Come for breakfast. I'll make eggs." Then I set the phone down and sat in the dark with my grandson and waited for morning. I was making eggs when I heard the knock. Not the eggs I had been planning on. I had started with the intention of doing something simple, scrambled with cheese, the kind that requires no particular attention. But somewhere between cracking the first egg and finding the butter, I had ended up with the cast iron skillet on the stove, the good olive oil, the leftover herbs from the pasta 2 nights ago, and the vague ambition of something worth sitting down for. The kitchen smelled like garlic and rosemary and fresh coffee, which is about as close to a perfect morning as a kitchen in Queens in January can reasonably aspire to. Noah heard the knock before I did. He was in the hallway in his pajamas, hair pointing in 3 directions. Book already in hand, The Volcanoes, and he got to the door a full 4 seconds before I could wipe my hands on the dish towel and follow him. "Mom's here," he announced with no particular surprise, as if he had been expecting her all morning. Which, knowing Noah, he probably had. I opened the door. Emily was standing on the porch in the cold January air, her navy coat buttoned all the way up. This time, the missing button on the left cuff replaced she had sewn on a new one, slightly darker than the others, not quite matching. But there. She was holding a manila envelope in both hands, and she looked like a woman who had slept and eaten and made a decision she intended to keep. She looked like herself. Not the version of herself she had been performing for 3 years. Not the version she had been managing through the loan applications and the rearranged Christmas and the conference room at Chase Bank. Just herself, the face I had known since the morning she was born, underneath everything that had been layered on top of it. "You replaced the button," I said. She looked down at the cuff, then back up at me, surprised that I had noticed. "It doesn't match," she said. "I know," I said. "Come in, eggs are almost done." We ate together at the kitchen table, the 3 of us the way families eat when they are not performing anything for anyone. Noah told Emily about the volcanoes, with an enthusiasm that required very little encouragement and a great deal of latitude, and Emily listened with genuine attention, asking questions that revealed she had been paying closer attention to his interests than I had sometimes given her credit for. The photograph of Margaret and me was still propped against the fruit bowl where Noah had put it 2 days ago. Emily saw it and looked at it for a long moment and did not say anything, which was the right response. When Noah excused himself to go continue his research, he had reached the chapter on pyroclastic flow, which he described as the most important part. Emily and I were left alone at the table with our coffee cups and the morning light coming through the kitchen window at the particular low angle that January mornings in New York specialize in. She put the manila envelope on the table between us. "I want to explain what this is before you open it," she said, "because I don't want you to think it's an attempt to settle something that can't be settled with paperwork. I know it can't." "All right," I said. "It's an acknowledgement of debt," she said. "I had it notarized yesterday morning. There's a notary on Hillside Avenue that was open New Year's Day, which I did not know until I needed it." A brief wry exhale that was almost a smile. "It lists every amount you've contributed to our household over the past 3 years. The down payment assistance, the roof deposit, the times you paid for things without being asked, because that's what you did. All of it." She looked at me steadily. "With a repayment schedule that David Harmon reviewed and said was realistic based on my actual income. Not aspirational, realistic." I looked at the envelope. "Emily, I know it doesn't fix the trust," she said. "I'm not trying to buy that back. I know that's not how it works." She pressed her hands flat on the table, a gesture I recognized. It was the same one she made in the conference room when she was steadying herself. "But I needed you to know that I see clearly what I took from you. Not just the money, the assumption that you would always be there, always be willing, always forgive, and never require anything in return." Her voice was even and careful, the voice of someone who had rehearsed this, not to perform it, but because she had needed to find the right words and had spent time doing that. "You deserved better than that. You deserved someone who treated your generosity like the gift it was instead of a resource to be managed." I picked up the envelope. I did not open it. I just held it. "I forgive you," I said. She looked at me. "Not because you brought this," I said. "Not because of the notarization or the repayment schedule, though I appreciate both. I forgive you because you're my daughter, and because I have been sitting with this for 10 days, and I've realized that carrying it indefinitely serves neither of us." I set the envelope down. "But I meant what I said on your porch 2 nights ago. Forgiveness is not a reset. It doesn't put us back where we were. It just means I'm not going to let what happened become the permanent definition of what we are." Emily's eyes filled. She did not blink them clear. This time she let them fill and spill 2 tears, the same as in the conference room, the same as in the park, running straight down without drama. "Okay," she said. The word came out small and complete the way important words sometimes do. "From now on," I said, "I love you with my eyes open." She pressed her lips together and nodded once firm, the nod of someone accepting terms they know are fair. We sat like that for a moment, the 2 of us in the kitchen, where I had made her lunches and helped with her homework, and listened to her talk about boys she liked and jobs she wanted and fears she had in the house I had lived in for 27 years, at the table where my wife and I had made 10,000 ordinary decisions that had amounted in the end to a life. Then Noah came back. He appeared in the doorway with his book and a question about whether volcanoes could theoretically erupt in New York, which he had been reading about and found very exciting as a possibility, and the atmosphere of the kitchen shifted immediately from the weight of the past 10 days to the particular specific energy of a 7-year-old who has learned something alarming and wants to discuss it. Emily laughed, a real one startled out of her, the laugh of someone who had not expected to laugh this morning and found it arrived anyway. "There are no volcanoes in New York," she told him. "Theoretically," Noah said with great emphasis on the word, "there could be." Theoretically, she agreed, there could be. He climbed into the chair beside her, apparently satisfied that the distinction had been acknowledged, and opened his book to show her the relevant page. She leaned over to look her shoulder against his, and I watched the 2 of them at my kitchen table and thought about what it takes to rebuild something, and how long it takes, and how sometimes the rebuilt version is stronger than the original, because you know exactly where the weak points are, and you have chosen with full knowledge to build around them anyway. I refilled my coffee. I picked up the photograph from against the fruit bowl, Margaret laughing, in 1989, on the steps of the first house we ever owned, while I looked at her instead of the camera. I walked it down the hall to the living room and set it on the bookshelf where it had been before she died, and where I had stopped keeping it because some grief is too heavy to carry in plain sight, and sometimes you have to put it in a drawer for a while. I was ready to put it back. When I returned to the kitchen, Noah was explaining pyroclastic flow to Emily with the aid of hand gestures, and Emily was listening with the focused, slightly alarmed attention of a woman learning something she had not known she needed to know about geological hazard. The morning light was coming through the window. The coffee was hot. The kitchen smelled like rosemary and garlic, and the particular combination of ordinary things that amounts in the end to home. Noah looked up when I came in. "Grandpa," he said, "did you know that when a volcano erupts, the ash can travel hundreds of miles?" "I didn't know that," I said. "It can reach Queens," he said with great satisfaction. "Theoretically," Emily said without looking up from the book. "Theoretically," Noah agreed. I sat down at the table with my coffee and my daughter and my grandson in the house I had built my life around at the start of a new year, and I thought about what I had learned. I had learned that trust and attention are two different things, and you need both. I had learned that generosity without limits is not generosity, it is an invitation, and not everyone who accepts it deserves it. I had learned that forgiveness is not the same as forgetting, and that loving someone with your eyes open is not the same as loving them less. It is, in fact, the only way to love them in a manner that can last. I had learned that a 7-year-old boy can understand more about truth and loyalty than most adults I have known, and that sometimes the most important thing in a room is a piece of red construction paper with a crooked Christmas tree on it and 2 words written in block letters by someone who meant every one of them. And I had learned, or maybe remembered, because I had always known it and had simply let it slip, that you can build something solid and still have to rebuild it. That is not failure. That is just the nature of building. You find the cracks, you understand why they formed, and you fill them with something that will hold this time, because now you know what the ground is actually made of. I spent my whole life building things. I am not done yet. I have told you this family story not to make myself look good because I didn't for most of it. I signed things I didn't read. I let love replace attention. I confused trust with blindness, and I paid for it in ways that went further than money ever could. If this family story taught me anything, it is this: generosity without boundaries is not kindness. It is permission, and the people most likely to use it against you are often the ones who know exactly how much you love them. I believe God does not ask us to be perfect. He asks us to see clearly, love honestly, and know when to say enough. That is what I finally learned to do. Do not wait as long as I did. This family betrayal changed me. It did not break me. And if you have ever lived through your own version of this, if you have ever been the person who trusted too much or moved the line one too many times, leave a comment below. I read everyone. If this story meant something to you, share it with someone who needs it. And subscribe, because more stories like this one are coming. Thank you for staying with me until the very end. Note, some stories on this channel include fictional elements created for reflection and education. If this content isn't right for you, that's okay. Step away and find what serves you better.